Hello, friends. My name is Devon, and I'm joined by my friend Anthony here, and we're gonna have a riveting conversation about some cinema and cinematography, and how these things, if done correctly, can literally make you feel something when you're seeing a movie, or make the movie have a purpose. In other words. So, I mean, Anthony, what are some movies that you saw recently that you really, really enjoyed?
I don't know if any of you have seen Mother, but I pretty much have not stopped thinking about this movie since I saw it.
Really?
It is one of the most disturbing, riveting, heartbreaking experiences I've ever had. It completely throws everything you know about narrative and setting and plot in the garbage. And it's the same guy that made Requiem for a Dream and Black Swan, so you already know to expect something wild.
Yeah,
but
Black Swan's a great movie.
He just goes completely past what you expected him to do. It starts out in this burnt-out husk of a house that's like this giant round house that looks like something out of a movie. I'd say no. And funny enough, and it's all just completely destroyed, and there's this girl that's like burnt to a crisp, and then this guy picks her up and takes her up into a higher part of the house, and he has this crystal and he puts it into this metal frame, and then the house just completely rebuilds itself, goes back to normal. I actually missed the beginning of the movie, so I don't really know exactly what happened, but the ending is the same as the beginning. I read the description.
Really?
So he takes the crystal out of her chest and sets it into the rack, and then the house just completely rebuilds, and another girl forms in the bed upstairs, and she goes to find her husband, and it's just this really weird, disjointed, it almost seems like they know each other and they know their husband and wife, but they don't actually know each other. They've never truly interacted with each other before.
Yeah.
But there's some familiarity. It's just a very uncomfortable, weird movie. And it goes on like that for a little while, and then this guy shows up. He's a doctor, and he says that he thought it was a bed and breakfast and whatever else. And then it eventually comes out that he's just a fan of the guy's poetry. And he lets him stay, and then his wife shows up, and she's also staying, and the girl the whole time is wondering why he's letting all these random people stay. And then she keeps having these moments where she feels it seems like an earthquake almost, and she goes into the bathroom and drinks this weird, it's like yellow powder, and she puts it in water and it turns into what looks like yellow Kool-Aid, and she drinks it, and then it kind of makes the creaking subside. But every time he does something like that, lets in random people or does something to upset her, that happens and the whole house shakes. And at certain points during the movie, she puts her head against the wall, and it travels inside the wall, and you see this gigantic heart. And as the movie goes on, the heart gets more and more blackened and tough, and stops beating so much. And throughout the movie, that happens. The guy and his wife come, and then they're being real rude, and they eventually break the crystal, and he gets extremely upset. And then their son shows up, and their other son shows up, and they're arguing about that their dad didn't put the one son in the will, and he's all pissed off, and then they get in a fight, and one son kills the other son.
Oh, Jesus.
In their house, and the girl the whole time is why are you letting these people in? Why don't you just kick them out? You're destroying everything. And it just gets completely out of control. He goes to the hospital and leaves her there on her own, and the other son that killed his brother is around still, and he doesn't even try to protect his wife or bring him with her or anything. It's so weird. And it just gets worse and worse. All the people come back to the house, then they have a memorial service at the house. Hundreds of people show up. Everyone's destroying the house.
Oh yeah, spoilers, by the way.
Yeah, being assholes. Yeah, if you wanted to watch this movie.
No, we do recommend you go see it, because I've heard good things about the movie too. I like I said, I haven't seen it myself. I'd really like to go see it, because I've heard great things about it. And I've also heard negative things about it, because maybe people just don't understand. But I'd like to see it for myself and form an opinion.
Yeah, definitely. Well, anyway, after all this goes on, it just keeps getting worse and worse. At some point, there's thousands of people there mobbing the house because they want to get talk to this guy because he's a poet, and there's a scene where it's like straight off warfare, like the house is torn apart, there's a riot squad, and like someone throws a Molotov cocktail, the whole place catches on fire.
Yeah.
There's a baby in it, and some very horrible things happen to the baby, and it's like, dude, it's... Oh my god. I walked out of the theater silent. I didn't want to talk about it.
Now, like, the way this movie was like shot, did that make any impact on it? Like, was it like weird? Was it like anything like strangely offset or anything to make it like even more like of an experience?
There was barely any sound, like any music. Like, it was...
Really? That's...
They made a soundtrack, and they decided that they were gonna just go for like ambience and just weird drones and like stuff like that to just create the most unsettling feeling. And the way it was shot was just so many shots where it's just continuous. Like, it just follows these people throughout the house, and at points it just gets like way too uncomfortably close to them. And it just really capitalizes on how awkward it is and how it just seems like this nightmare that just keeps flowing into one situation after another, and everything is seamless. Like, you never see the transitions coming, they just happen.
I really I'm a really big fan of movies that do that they basically omit the soundtrack, and they just use sounds or like just noise, like white noise. It's pretty fascinating actually how they get to that point in a film. But with Mother, what's the big twist? What's the big climactic ending here?
There's this point where they're talking to people, and the husband hints that he might like to have children, and his wife is like, "What the fuck? His wife is like, "What? You never asked me about this." Like, and like internally, she's looking at him, and she's like wondering why he said that. And then later on, she's like, "Oh, you want to have kids, but you can't, you know." So then he just grabs her, and they go upstairs, and they get down to it. And the next morning, she's like, "I'm pregnant." He's like, "What?" She's like, "I'm pregnant. I don't know. I just know." And throughout the whole movie, there's this thing about how he has writer's block. He can't come up with anything. And then he comes up with this beautiful poem about her. And because now that she's pregnant and everything, and they have the kid. And right around the time that they're having the kid is when all these people show up, and it's like a war zone, and she's pregnant, like getting thrown around. And then they make it up to his office where the crystal was shattered. And they're in there, and she gives birth. And she's sitting there with the baby, and he wants to take the baby, and she's like, "Why? No." And he's like, "Just let me hold him." And she's like, "No, because you're gonna..." And like, are those people still there? Like, she's like the movie just plays on such paranoia and like anxiety, and it makes you want to like jump out of your own skin, because there's these people who are just invading their house constantly.
Yeah, it just makes you uncomfortable, right?
It's so bad. And so he takes the baby out there, and this is easily the climax of the movie. He takes the baby out there and like holds it up, and all these people, it's like a slum now. Like, there's people that are just homeless living in this house, and it just looks like a torn up city. And he holds up the baby, and they just take it, and there's like this religion, and they're like carrying the baby, and the baby's just screaming, getting tossed around, and then it's like real loud, and like all these people are yelling, and all of a sudden you just hear a loud snap, and the baby's head goes limp.
Oh, Jesus.
And then she tears her way through the crowd, like screaming for her baby, and she gets to the front, and this priest guy turns around, who is like one of the poet's publishers in the beginning. He like turns into like this wasteland priest, and he turns around, and he's holding like a piece of bloody meat, and she pushes him out of the way, and it's her baby just mutilated on an altar, and there's people all around that are just like eating pieces of the baby.
All right.
Having communion.
This is all right. You know, us talking about dead babies. I didn't see that one. Nobody see that one coming.
In the theater did.
I really have to, like, I'm really intrigued. I want to check it out. I really do.
Yeah. And after that, she screams that, like, you're all murderers, and she starts killing people there's a piece of, I think she breaks a glass. She picks up a shard and just starts stabbing people and kills like 8 people before they start beating her up.
Oh, man.
And then she makes her way into the cellar and, like, runs away from everyone and lights the gas tanks on fire, and just the whole place goes up. And then in the charred remains, the guy is unscathed, never says his name or anything. He's just like completely fine. She's burnt to a crisp. He picks her up, brings her upstairs. He's like, "Do you have any love left for me?" And she like admits that she does. And he pulls her heart out of her chest, dusts, like crumples all this stuff off, and it's another crystal. And he sets it in the thing, and the house just completely rebuilds itself. So
yeah, that's an awesome, like, that sounds great to me. I don't know, like, why do some people not like this movie that much? Like,
it attacks everything that they've seen in the last 10 years.
You think that's it? Like,
it's an antagonist of the box office.
Yeah, it's like
scares everyone.
the anti-hero of the box office.
Yeah,
basically.
it's divisive. I think it's meant to be divisive. I would be unhappy if it got anything above a 50% because it's perfect. It's supposed to, half the people that see it are supposed to hate it, half the people are supposed to love it.
So you'll either like it or you don't.
Yeah, it's a very
that sounds
bold
dope.
statement on everything. And I left out so much. Like there's so many
Yeah,
things.
no,
It's so
I
hard.
would
It's
imagine.
such a weighty, heady movie. You just got to see it.
It sounds super convoluted and like
Oh my God.
more than meets the eye. And I'm sure like there's a bunch of
ride.
stuff. You only saw it once. I'm sure if you saw it again, there'd be more like innuendos and
yeah.
stuff that you pick up on.
And it's honestly one of those movies that I'd love to never see again. Like it's
Oh,
just
yeah,
so
yeah,
heavy,
yeah.
and you just never want to experience it again.
Yeah, no.
And I've heard the same thing about Requiem and Black Swan.
Yeah. Like I did see Black Swan, and I thought that movie was wild, but I thought it was good. Like I was like, damn, this is a good movie. Like this guy knows what he's doing. He's got some sort of function to make good movies or whatever. I don't know. Now like the next movie that like made me like pretty I don't know. I guess it was just you could say it was like a nostalgia thing or like I was excited to see the movie, but it was the Stephen King reboot, I guess, of the miniseries of the novel, whatever you want to call it. Now you saw this too, so we can
I did see this, yeah.
we can go back and forth in conversation here. But like this movie was good. Like I thought it was good. Like I'm giving it some praise here. I thought it was a great movie. Like there was this non-stop sense since like 4 to 6 minutes in of like something ain't right here. Like this is weird, and I want to go home. Like I don't like it, you know. Again, spoilers. Go see this movie. Go see Mother. Support movie theaters and cinema. Definitely go check them out. But we jump right into the movie, and obviously the effects and stuff are levels over the original miniseries with, what was it, Tim Curry? He was the original. So the effects are like immediately like I was sitting in the theater, and as soon as my man Georgie over here, as soon as his arm was literally bitten off in an instant, my jaw was like, oh, okay, so this is what we're in for. Like this is this 2-hour journey. I mean, and it was weird. Like that whole conversation between Pennywise and Georgie, it was so like not humane, you know what I mean? And that's the thing, like if you've read like Stephen King novels, you know that Pennywise is from, or should I say it is from the Macroverse, which is an overarching universe in the Stephen King like plot line. Like he connects everything, and the Macroverse is just this horrible place like with monsters and all these ridiculous intelligent beings.
Giant turtles.
Yeah, and Maturin the giant turtle is somewhere in there, I think. And they really, like, immediately, if you know, like, Stephen King, you know that it's weird. Like, you know that he's not, just from the way he's communicating with Georgie, it's like, it's as if a dog walked in a room and started talking to you. Like, is this normal? Like, this isn't normal. No, this is weird. Like, Bill Skarsgård, the actor that played Pennywise, first of all, they made, Jesus, they did a great, this man's like 6'4" normally, so obviously in makeup and costume,
He's about 7 feet tall.
yeah, he's absolutely terrifying. His hairline is non-existent at that point, like,
It's on the back of his head.
and he did this thing when playing the character that he just drools when he talks, and like, that was just him like doing it, and it's so great, like, just when he's having a normal conversation with Georgie in the opening scene in the sewer, he's just like laughing and drooling, and it's just really, really unsettling, you know? Like, it was, I think, like, the movie, like, just doesn't have any super, super low points other than, like, you know, it's a horror movie and people are stupid in horror movies, but that's whatever, that's how it goes. Like, I don't know, what'd you think about that, like, the whole, like just throwing you right in, like, to the movie, like, nonstop, like, you know, you're not waiting for anything.
I thought it was really good. I think it was a good adaptation. They definitely skipped over the right parts.
Oh yeah, obviously, like, you can't, you know, if you've read the novel, you know, you can't have that stuff in movie. You'd go to jail. Like,
they made some very good decisions and changed things in good ways and had hints towards things like
yeah.
for example, Patrick in the novel was like openly like gay towards the other people in the bully group, and the way they did it in the movie was one of the first times it killed people was on this bridge, and it was two gay people, and it involved these balloons that say "I heart dairy." So in the movie, they just have a balloon that floats up to them that turns around and says "I heart dairy," and only people that read the novel would even know that.
And it's a great nod. Like, people are like, "What is that?" And the thing about that is, like, the reason, the art direction reason they chose to put that on a balloon, like right before like an intense scene, is like, people who are seeing the movie, they're gonna read that, they're gonna be like, what the hell does that mean? And then like boom, like before they could even figure it out, they're getting they're just getting like scared from this clown that's in their face or whatever. And like little things like that really made the movie for me. Like, it wasn't even, don't get me wrong, like Pennywise is there nonstop, but like the little scenes where he isn't, even everything is just uncomfortable. Like the setting, like what's going on in the background, if you like actually pay attention and like go see the movie again, honestly, like there's stuff in the background that's just weird. Like there's like murals and stuff on the walls, and like the way people are acting in the background, and it's just really like weird. And like the way the adults act in this movie is like, it's like the equivalent of Charlie Brown adults, you know, and like old Peanuts cartoons. They just absolutely are oblivious to the fact that children are dying frequently, and every adult in the town is basically a child molester. I mean, it's just so uncomfortable. Like, you feel like no one's out to help these kids, and they're really in it on their own, and it's scary. Like,
have you heard I don't know if it's a theory or if it's true that it has some level of mind control, and that might have contributed to the adults being so vacant?
Yeah, I've heard that, actually. I've heard a lot of like theories and stuff like that, but I think the main thing was like adults can be killed by it, and older people. It's just like, the whole thing is that it is this species called the deadlights, and they're basically these orange lights, like these orange like writhing lights, and humans can't, like, they literally can't perceive what this thing looks like. And no, you know, a lot of the people that go to see a movie are just going to see a spooky clown movie. Like, they don't know that. Like,
yeah.
But the people that do, like, know, and they know that the deadlights, like, they feed on specific things. Like, it, for example, it feeds on fear. Like, that's the big thing about him, or it, Pennywise. That's why it targets children, because children are more susceptible to fear. Like, it's much easier to get fear out of a child than it is an adult, and that's why he goes on a field day every 27 years and absolutely massacres these children. Like, I mean, granted, like, that opening scene is pretty brutal, but like, you think you're in for like a gore fest, but you're really not. Like, it's like tasteful gore, you know? It's like,
emotionally, it's a gore fest.
Yeah, it really is. It's because, and you think like, okay, these kids are having a conversation in broad daylight, they're safe. No, it's like something's about to happen, and you should be prepared for the whole movie. Like, this, it's just really ominous. And like, the main thing I want to talk about is like the way things were, like camera placement. Like, that's such a big deal in a movie like this, especially because when you have these long hallways, like, you know, you could place the camera in the center of the hallway, but like in this movie, it would be like slightly to the side or like something like that. And Bill Skarsgård, like, in his performance as Pennywise, his eyes were slightly cross-eyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, it really is, but it's also like, why is that like that? Like, that's weird.
Any ounce of humanity could have given to him to try to make yourself less scared is just gone.
Yeah.
He looks like a lizard.
It's like the way he comes out of, there's this one scene where they're in the house, obviously they're in the old abandoned house, like looking, like trying to hunt down it or whatever, and they get separated because they get scared, and like Pennywise like taps into their fear and like splits them up in the house, and then he comes out of the fridge, like this like fridge that's like 4 feet tall. He comes out of it. This dude's like 6'5", and he's like a contortionist the way he comes out of the fridge. His like limbs are like, it's so cool and uncomfortable and awesome, and like that whole like fight scene with him is just great. Like the movie is just good. Like, it's not my favorite movie of all time or anything, but it's just like, you know, with recent horror movie like releases, this one's definitely easily the best I've seen in like maybe like a year or two. Like,
I'm gonna say there's at least 5 horror movies that were in production that are no longer in production after they saw it.
Really? I didn't know that.
There has to be at least.
Oh yeah. Like I would say, like they saw it and they're like, damn, how do we compete with that? Like the director did a great job, and like I'm so happy there's gonna be a chapter 2.
2019.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it, and don't get like the cast too. They did a great job with that, like. Finn Wolfhard, you know, star of Stranger Things.
I was worried about that.
I was worried that he would like people would be like, oh, it's Stranger Things, like
too.
Yeah, like, but no, he did a great. He was funny. He played Richie well. Like
he played a totally different character. He didn't like rely on what he was like in the show. He was definitely gonna be a very famous person soon.
Oh yeah, no, he's a cool kid too. He's done a lot of like shows and stuff like that. He's a really cool kid. Like they didn't even choose like super known people either. Like they just, all these kids were great together. Like they've been working on this movie for a while, so they've been like had time to become friends and like really form that bond. And the crazy thing about like when they were shooting it is that they kept Bill Pennywise away from the kids as long as possible. They literally did not show him for like months, I think one of them said, because I've watched so many interviews about this movie. I just think it's good, and that's what I do. But they were like, yeah, the first time we saw him was the scene with the fridge, and like that's the first time we all like actually confronted him, and we were like whoa, like man, he's
imposing.
Yeah, he's like, that's scary, like terrifying. Just I like how they changed some more from the mini-series, I guess, and like because back then that was a time where a lot of people were scared of movie monsters, like, you know, like Swamp Thing, like Frankenstein, werewolves, and they completely changed that to like, I don't know, like more logical fears, I guess you'd say, like disease and like loss of your family.
It definitely catered to these kids extremely well.
Yeah, and they completely changed the time setting too. It's set in the 80s now, this movie, and that was not a bad move, because like, I don't know, a lot of people seeing that movie now can more relate to the 80s than the original time slot.
It's definitely timely, just like Stranger Things. They're definitely tapping into something that's very strong right now.
Stranger Things is great too. Like, I'm not knocking Stranger Things at all. Like, I love that. I just didn't want them. I wanted these to be separate entities. I was so relieved to find that it was complete. Like, I didn't even think about Stranger Things while watching. Yeah, no. Other than Finn Wolfhard being a cool kid, like, and I'm like, oh yeah, Stranger Things. I love that. But honestly, I was too busy, like just watching the movie. Like, it was good. And just like the way certain things happen, like they wouldn't be scared to show you something. Like they wouldn't be scared to show you something walking towards you. Like it wasn't just like, don't get me wrong, there were jump scares, but there was also like, just like this thing is coming for you and there is nothing you can do about it. Like the one painting lady, like that was pretty terrifying. Like the long painting.
Yeah, and that I definitely related to that one. There's been plenty of times where like painting.
Oh yeah, like fine art.
Crap out
yeah,
of me.
Man, that stuff's wild. Like you see that stuff in your dreams. Like
that kid gets a pass from me. I definitely.
I mean, he got his face eaten in the movie.
Yeah.
They walk in on him. He's just getting his face munched on, and he was alive after that.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this is, and there are some scenes that were really funny too. Like
doors.
Actually funny.
Scary, not scary at all.
Yeah.
Really scary.
Well, like it's funny, but then it's like it's almost scary that it's funny. Like
it makes it worse that it's able to make jokes.
Yeah, like there'd be times where the kids would be in like situations where they're getting bullied, or like they're just literally walking through their house at night and it's like messing with them. It's in the bushes waving with a severed arm.
Yeah.
And he did a great job as the character, and like, especially when he was dancing at the end.
Oh
man,
my god,
that's
when it's like stabilized on his forehead, that was the funniest
great.
thing I've ever
Absolutely,
seen.
like it wouldn't be as funny if it wasn't stabilized on his forehead. I don't think. Like they knew what they were doing. They knew, and his face, he was like
Very
angry,
stern.
sad, stern looking. And
when, I forget which kid it was, but he was crying, and it was like holding onto his face and crying along with him, and like making fun of him as he was crying.
Oh yeah, that was great. It was the kid that was afraid of the leopard. His name Eddie, I believe.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Gazebos.
This kid is just this kid is just scared of getting sick because he thinks he's gonna die from anything, and
his mom was like,
his mom's super like sheltered about it, and then
he wasn't in a bubble.
He's walking home, and his fear is like a diseased person. So he sees this person, this leper, and he's just absolutely terrified, and he's running, and then he turns around and he sees the clown, and it grabs him by the face, and he's drooling all over him and crying and yelling in his face, and they're both like it's pretty hysterical, but it's also pretty terrifying. Like he's literally just toying with them. He could kill them right there. Like,
another interesting thing I heard is that it is just it's so full of itself that it almost doesn't believe, like it doesn't think logically, because it just thinks that it always like, oh, I got it in the bag, like I'm gonna get these kids, and it just very obviously lets them go. Yeah. Because it's just so egotistical.
Yeah, he's just like, I've been doing this for so long, like this is my job, you know.
Yeah.
Killing kids is my business, you know what I'm saying? Put it in the bag. What was it? Like I said, I was saying earlier about like the deadlights and stuff. This is a big factor about like why it is a thing. He actually abducts Beverly after she murders her father, but no, she murders him because he's an abusive, disgusting pedophile, and we don't like those around these parts. And then as soon as she, like, you think that like the blood rush of that scene is over, and then as soon as she turns around, he's in her fit. Like Pennywise is right there. He grabs her by the neck, abducts her. And you would think, like, why doesn't he just kill her right there? Well, we get to that part later when we learn that she's been dealing with this fear of her father, like, and she overcame that. Like, she murdered him. She's not scared of this clown. And he's like, you will be. And then he opens his mouth, and it's like this awesome scene where his jaw unhinges and like all these teeth, and you see these 3 lights circling in his throat. And, you know, those are the deadlights, and that's like, people who get it. And other people are like, whoa, what's that? That's wild. And it's pretty cool, and she actually, like, she survives because she's not scared, and that's what happens. Like, all the kids band together, and they meet up in his lair, and he's just trying to absolutely, like, kill them. At that point, he's like, man, I messed up by not doing this earlier, because they're like beating the shit out of him. Like, they just go ham on him. And it's a cool scene. It's just overall a good movie, and then they hit you with the chapter 2 coming soon at the end.
Yeah.
Now, which you knew this would be a thing if you were really into it, but then people who saw it and thought it was great and like are just getting introduced to like this movie, like I'm sure young kids went to see this and they're like, oh, Stephen King, like this movie's dope. Like now they got something to look forward to. Like I'm pretty excited for the sequel. I wonder who they're going to cast. I think that's going to be a big thing.
That's definitely going to be a big question, and because there's of course there's going to be people that pop up in the next year or two, and they're like, oh crap, we got to use these people.
Yeah, like
disclaimer: if you have children and you went to see it, do not let them read the book until they're 25.
Yeah, there's Stephen King is known for his graphic like sex scenes and stuff like that, and possibly the worst one he's ever written is in it. They didn't put it in the movie, thank God, but yeah, don't get me wrong, it's a great read. It's like 1,000 pages, but you'll
know when you get to it.
Yeah, it's a thing, and like they kept it, like they didn't keep it, but they held true to like what that meant. Like the kids still banded together in the end, and they still marked themselves for blood. And
I think that was definitely like the equivalent.
Yeah, they made this pact, this blood bond, and then the order they left is pretty significant. And I'm not gonna say anything about that, but the order that the kids left when they were hanging out is very significant to the next movie order of events. So obviously, like, it as a movie, pretty good. Like, great cinematography. Like,
oh yeah,
well done overall. Like, the art direction was spot on. Like, I think Pennywise's costume was like particularly like a good choice. Like whoever like made that decision, good job. And even the kids' clothes, like they all really looked like everything was art directed perfectly, in my opinion. From the setting to the clothes to the costumes, everything looked great. The shots, I was pretty happy with. The music was like, I don't really remember it, so.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it wasn't so bad that it stood out.
Yeah, I like it. It did its job. I think the main thing is the overall sense of I'm uncomfortable right now. Like,
Please let me leave.
Yeah, like we got 2.5 hours of this, or however long the movie is. I don't know.
And the budget was tiny compared to other movies. I heard that the budget was just microscopic.
Was it really?
And they did a lot of things in cheap ways, but it just still looked so amazing.
Yeah. A lot of the stuff was obviously Pennywise and his mouth unhinging was effects, but like a lot of stuff was pretty practical. Like they actually had a guy in a leopard suit at one point and stuff like that. And that's cool. Like that's how you got to do it, you know. So this movie was obviously made for like a purpose. It had a clear goal in mind. Like they knew what they were doing and they executed it well. And a purpose is a good thing to have, but you also don't need to have that to make a movie. But like, for example, I'm sure the purpose of it was to revitalize it. Like that's a great novel, and I mean, obviously it was going to live on, but they wanted a real good adaptation, like on screen. And the miniseries was good, but it was good for different reasons. Like Pennywise was a completely different character in that miniseries. He was more of a joke, like not in a bad way, but he was like funny. Like it was comical almost.
And also, he was the best part of the miniseries, and all the other actors just kind of sucked.
And then like they played their characters. Like don't get me like it was all right. Like I like the original It, but Tim Curry's definitely like
the shining star of that.
Yeah. And this new one, like everything, like everyone did a good job. Even the creepy child molester dad, like he did a great job at feeling like a child molester or whatever. But this movie, like I said, it had a purpose, and that purpose was like, I would say to like give you like this fear, like, you know, that's what horror movies do. But this one was like, since the whole movie was about like fear or whatever, it obviously is like, no, you're gonna be uncomfortable like in every ounce of this movie, and that was the purpose, was to make you like quite uncomfortable. And this movie was like, the reason it was made was like I said, just to revitalize the novel. And you know, movies that I really like synergize with that have a purpose or were made for a reason. An example of one of them would be like recent movies that I saw. I really liked Shin Godzilla. Like that movie is, I love that movie, and for a lot of different reasons, like completely different from it. Like obviously it was like, it wasn't made in response to anything, which is fine. Like you can do that with movies. Movies can be made to be movies, and that's dope. But Shin Godzilla was basically the first true like reboot of a Godzilla movie. Like this was made by Toho, like the original Godzilla in 1954, the same company, same studio, whatever, I believe. Don't quote me, but the original Godzilla was made in response to Hiroshima bombings, which is like that's interesting to me. You know, like they made this movie almost as a coping mechanism for this mass like destruction, like and in a way Godzilla became an icon for Japan or things like that. Like they throw him on billboards, like he's everywhere over there. He's like he's known as Japan's savior now. Like he fights monsters away. But in the first movie he was just this terror, like this thing that happened. Like, why is this happening? And it was literally an art form made from like a tragedy. Like they made it from the Hiroshima bombing. And Shin Godzilla is like the first true reboot in a way, because you know that recent tsunami or earthquake that Japan had, this was made basically in response to that. Like they're like, we could tie this in with that and make it a whole Godzilla reboot. And Godzilla in this movie is like, it's really more like a natural disaster. So that whole movie just gives you this feeling of like helplessness, not helplessness in like as in terms of like running from a monster, but helplessness in terms of like this is a natural disaster, and this what do we do? Like what do we do? Like the whole movie. All right, the movie starts immediately. You get in like Godzilla's there. Like this is a thing. Like Godzilla's established, and the whole movie is them dealing with it, which is like 2014, the Godzilla movie. You only got like what 5 minutes of this Godzilla, and I thought the movie was all right. Like I like big monster movies.
Liked it. There was just not a lot.
They just showed him like
Focused too much on the stupid.
And also don't clap during movies. No one likes that. People who clap when Godzilla came on the screen, and then 2014 Godzilla. I don't like you. I'm sorry.
It's such a stupid American thing to do.
Don't clap during movies, man. Come on.
It's bad enough we made a Godzilla movie. Don't make it worse.
Yeah. All right, back on topic of Shin Godzilla here. This movie is great. Like, really go see it. Like, I don't care if you don't like Godzilla. Like, it's an art form in a lot of ways. Like, a lot of people didn't like this movie, but like, if I feel like a lot of people did. Like, a lot of people, like the Japanese, like this movie, and like people who like Godzilla like this movie. And like I was saying, right off the bat, Godzilla is a thing, but he's not like a big lizard man. He's not like a big dude in a suit. He's literally just a tail, like squirming around. And they're like, what the hell is this? Like, what do we do? And they have these big government meetings like all the time, like trying to figure out what to do. Like, let's run tests on it, and then they shoot it or they do something to it, and it goes back into the water. And they're like, oh, we did it. And then like the next day or something, like a few hours later, Godzilla comes back, and it's not a tail, it's evolved. So this first of all, right here, the big thing about this movie is like Godzilla evolves, and that is completely dope. It's a great idea in and of its own, and the fact that happens is super cool in my opinion. So Godzilla evolves, and he's basically this little fish monster. He's like got nubby legs, and he's crawling around like a worm, and yes, and he has these big googly eyes, and it's like almost childish. And that's the part that's like you realize like this is the biggest Godzilla like ever made. Like this is the biggest scale form of a Godzilla, and he's just trudging around on land doing his thing. He's got the big googly eyes. He's cute, like adorable looking. But then you're like, oh, he's actually decimating like thousands of people. Like he's just crushing them, like walking through doing his thing. And this is that whole natural disaster aspect. Like he's not a bad guy. It's just Mother Nature in full effect. Like he's just doing his thing. Like before this nuclear plant was hit with that earthquake or tsunami, this is what he would be doing, whatever specimen or creature it was before it was mutated to this form. And he's just walking around doing his thing, and they're like, okay, we gotta do something about this. We gotta kill it. So they try to kill it, and they hit it with missiles, and I believe, or something of the sorts, and Godzilla's hurt, and so he goes back into the ocean again, and they're like, all right, we messed up. Like this time we're using the big guns. And he comes back, and he is huge, like gigantic. He's got arms, and they're like his claws, and they look really goofy. And the whole thing about like what makes it so like scary when he comes back is the way he looks. Like he's got like shark teeth basically, and he's just looking really, really like menacing basically. And he's still got the fish eye, which makes it even worse. Like he's just got this one like eye, and it's just like he's just looking around, and he looks like he's in pain. Like the whole thing about the creature is that it looks like it's going through pain, and it's just like why is this happening? Like why are you doing this to me? Like I'm just living. And then they try to shoot him with the big guns, and then they're like, his skin's too rough to like do anything. And then at this point, Godzilla's pissed that people are like hitting him, and they're having all these government meetings, and obviously the one loose cannon, like young kid in the government meetings is like, no, we should handle it early. We should kill it now before it. And at first they were like, no, we need to study it or like see what happens. And like, lo and behold, this kid was right. Obviously he's like, I told you, you guys are idiots. And they're like, oh, we're idiots. And it's just this big thing. So Godzilla's pissed, and then his jaw unhinges, and you don't think it gets like, it opens up to like this predator looking, and he shoots like this like ultralight beam of flame, and it just slices things in half, and then you think like, holy shit, what are we doing now? Like he's blowing stuff up, and then a beam comes from his tail, like, because remember how I said,
really?
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. It's awesome. So like, remember how I said he first was a tail?
Yeah.
And so people are saying, like, what if the thing with legs and like the mouth just grew off of the tail? Because like the tail basically has like a mouth and eyes, and it's shooting lasers, and it's like, it's absolutely nuts. And like they're.
See, this is why America should have never made a Godzilla movie, because we don't know how to do it right.
Well,
this obviously sounds amazing compared to ours.
It really is. It's a really great movie. Don't get me wrong, it's just a big monster movie. Like that's.
It sounds like a smart monster
But
movie.
yeah, it had a purpose. You know,
Yeah.
It was made for a reason, just like the original was. Like every Godzilla after the 1954 one was made because Godzilla's badass.
Yeah.
Which is fine, and like he became the good guy, fighting away the other monsters. But like.
It's not just a cheap cash in like the 2014 one.
Yeah, I mean,
2000
and I'm
too.
still gonna go see I like the 2014 one. I
Yeah.
have the movie. I purchased it. I saw it. And I'm gonna see their sequel to it because I like Godzilla a lot and I thought it was a good movie. But this is a good movie for different reasons.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's better. Like, I like it better, and just. So in the end, they decide that like, okay, we can't kill this thing. Like we can't penetrate its skin, so we're gonna freeze it for a year or two, and then figure out how to deal with it. And they get all these. And the big thing about it is they use trains. Like, and since this is a Japanese movie, watching it in America, people are like, okay, big deal, it's a train. But like, trains are held in such high regard in Japan, like in their culture. Like they use them for everything. To just sacrifice like millions of dollars worth of trains like that, like. It's just
That
like,
means something.
yeah, it's like this is a big deal. Like we need to figure out how to deal with it. And in the end, it's more like we can't deal with it. This is like Mother Nature's, like there's nothing we can do. So they just freeze it, and that ends up working. They like put a bunch of hydrogen or whatever it is on trains. I don't know. Yeah, they put things on trains and they ram the trains into Godzilla and freeze them.
It's amazing.
And like the music is great too. Like. Has great music, like it's memorable, it's just good. And this movie is basically like a constant bout of like, man, what are we gonna do? Like Godzilla's here, like how do we fight this? And he has constant screen time, which is how a movie should be, like a Godzilla movie. And in the end, like the last shot, it's like him frozen in the city. It zooms in on his tail. On his tail, it zooms in, and there's these little, like, humanoid, like, creepy looking things crawling off of it, frozen. And it just plays like this crazy, like, soundtrack at the end, and it's like, and then you're like, oh my god, like, this is its next way with dealing with its next problem. Because every time it evolved, it was just dealing with a problem that humans threw at it, and they're like, okay, so basically he was like, all right, so there's these little people, like, and they won't stop messing with me, and I want to be left alone. So you see these little Godzillas coming off of them, basically to like make natural selection happen, like make him the prime species. And it was such a good movie. Like I saw it in theaters. Obviously, it didn't have like a big presence in theaters because it's like a Toho movie. Like it's straight from Japan. Like, but it was definitely good, and it made me feel like good. Like it made me feel something. Like I was like. This is what movie making is in another culture. Like this is what happens when they make a movie with a reason, like with something behind it, like not just a reboot for no reason, which is fine. Like movies can be made in different ways, but like there's a right way to execute each one, you know?
I think that's what our main thing we wanted to get across with this was there's two types of movies. There's ones like Mother, and I think it's kind of like a half and half, and Shin Godzilla, where they're made with a purpose. They're made to disturb everything. They have a reasoning behind it. There's a passion behind it. And then there's other movies that don't necessarily have that, but it's not a bad thing. They're like comfort food.
Yeah, like I'm going to see, what's it called? Kingsman.
Yeah.
That's a badass movie. Just because it's a badass movie. That's all it is. It's just action
cool.
shots, and it's just cool.
Shut your brain off for 2 hours and you enjoy it.
Like, shut up. Let me watch this spy movie. Like, I want to see someone get shot in the face.
They're not supposed to be divisive. They're not supposed to scare people. They're not supposed to...
They're not supposed to make you think.
They're supposed to appeal to the largest possible audience.
It's eye candy, and that's good. Like,
that funds the rest of the industry and makes things like Mother possible. It gets people like Jennifer Lawrence famous so that she can put her clout behind a movie like Mother and get it made. She's she was instrumental in getting that movie made. But if we didn't have boring, like, you know, whatever 1,000 movies she's been in, we wouldn't have had that. So I think that's really cool.
It is really cool, and like good movies can be made, but they have to, like, there's a different way to do each one. Is basically it. And like like cinematography and art direction, those things definitely matter. You need to think really hard what you want to invoke when someone sees this costume or this landscape. Like, you really do, and it means a lot. Like, those things stick with viewers, and you might think they don't, but they do. Like, just seeing like a shot of someone in a costume, or a shot of this dystopian society, like from a certain angle, even not even like straight on, like if you make it slightly askew, it really does resonate with people, and they're like, whoa, like that's cool, or that's weird, or that's uncomfortable, or
They might not even know what's happening.
yeah, you might not even know why. You might not even know why you like the movie so much. It could just be because of camera placement and things like that. And I mean, it's just cool. Like, media is cool, the industry is cool. Support movies. Go to your movie theater. And you know, if you want to like get into like art direction, or like creative art direction, or like even cinematography, if you want to make videos, like you can come to Com Arts Luzerne. Like, it's a good place to start for everything. Like, we'll get you in the right direction, basically. You know, a lot of people know their stuff here, and you could learn the basics to basically do whatever you want with your creative endeavors, I'd say, you know?
This place is just, it's like a hub of just all the creative people in the area that, you know, don't want to drop $50,000 a semester on another college. They can come here. This place, the Advanced Technology Center where Com Arts Luzerne resides, is like, it's like an oasis. Like, all of the kinds of people you'd want to meet are here. There's so many brilliant people here. The professors have been in the industry for, some of them, 40 years. Like, they know what they're doing, and conversations like this happen every day.
Yeah,
stuff like this,
meaningful, passionate stuff, like stuff you care about.
Yeah,
which is good. Like, even if you come in here like just to meet people, like that's a big thing. Like, communication is key, and like you really do meet some cool people here, like that you'd love to hang out with, or talk about passionate things with, or do like make a band with, or do something cool like creative project. But
the people you meet are sometimes just as worth it as the classes, and like there's so much going on. Like right now we have this podcast, there's a team that's working on a documentary, there's a team that's working on using a puppet that someone that goes here made to create an ad campaign for the school. There's just so much.
People are doing things. Like, we want things to happen. We're trying to move forward. But all in all, go see movies, support cinema. Movies are good. We love movies. Don't torrent movies.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, seriously.
Unless you have to, like, unless there's no other way to get it.
I mean, if you really want to watch it, but like, torrent it, and then if you like it, buy it.
Yeah, if you like it, buy it.
Come on.
Try before you buy, but like, come on.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Go to luzerne.edu right now.